Welcome to the Personal Pension Radio Podcast, where you get unconventional insights into wealth building and retirement that actually work. Discover data-driven strategies and learn from a wealth of experience so that you can take your retirement to the next level. Now, here's your host. He was once bitten by a harbor seal, the income engineer, Kraig Strom.
All right, back on Personal Pension Radio. Glad to be here. Got another episode. We're broadcasting live today from Mr. Foley's van parked next to a potato field in Idaho. Beautiful, beautiful place. Kind of cold, but parked next to a potato field in Idaho. What a place to be. Love Mr. Foley's van. It goes everywhere. PersonalPensionRadio.com. If you're new to the podcast, get over to Personal Pension Radio. We're excited actually to be coming to the end of our first year. We kicked off earlier in 2015, and we're going to be at that 50-plus episodes in 2015. Really exciting. Glad that you've been along for the journey. Thank you to those listeners who have been with us from the beginning. We have listeners that are downloading our podcast all over the world, all across the United States. We really appreciate you being here. Make sure to share it with your friends. Now, for those of you who are new, what is Personal Pension Radio all about? Well, when you think about retirement, when you think about someday you might actually want to retire, you might want to sell your business, you might want to retire from your profession, whatever that may be, whatever it might mean to you, when you retire on that day, what do we need? We need income. And optimizing retirement income does not happen with a product. It doesn't happen with a mutual fund. It doesn't happen with life insurance. It doesn't happen with real estate or annuities. It doesn't happen with any of these products by themselves. None of these things will help you optimize your retirement income. You have to have a strategy. You've got to have an integrated approach. So Personal Pension Radio is all about bringing you the information and the conversation you need to start getting a handle on how to build, how to think about, and how to build your own personal pension-like income, your own strategy to maximize and optimize your retirement income. That's what we're focused on. Now, my short disclosure in the beginning, and I'm actually going to have probably 2 disclosures, maybe 3 or 4 or 20 in this episode because I'm in a bit of a ranting mood. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a CPA. I am a certified financial planner professional. However, don't act on the advice that you hear on this show, and especially don't act on the advice that you hear on a financial entertainer show or another radio show or a podcast or on the TV. So a financial entertainer, just for the record, is someone who has, for example, a radio show or a podcast who is not licensed to practice as a financial advisor or a financial planner. They're not licensed. They're not regulated by anybody other than the freedom of speech, which means they can ultimately say whatever the heck they want, and there's no regulatory authority really watching over and validating and double-checking what they're saying. So, meet with a qualified financial advisor before you implement or act on any advice or anything you might hear on our show here or in any venue that you might be surfing the web or listening to. So there's my short disclosure, at least maybe the first of a couple. I want to start with a segment today, Watch Your Step. So the first segment that I call Watch Your Step, of course, those of you who listen to the show, you know that it comes from where I used to, I grew up in the woods back east in Maine. You might be out on the farm, you might be out in the backyard on an acre of land and in the wilderness. You kind of have to sometimes watch where you're walking. So today, what I wanted to do is bring something to your attention that you've just got to watch out for this, because I read something on a website that I've actually followed as a place that I consider to be perhaps a good accumulation place, a place where you can actually invest and accumulate money at a lower cost of investing. It's a good place perhaps to get started, and that's at betterment.com. So betterment.com, and by the way, I'll link up to this particular article that I'm going to reference today, so you can be the judge for yourself. You can just go and take a look at the article and click on the link in the show notes. But Betterment.com is a web-based investment website. I guess that's a redundant thing to say, but it's a website where you can actually go and work with their systems and platforms to make investment accounts and so forth. And they really specialize in being very efficient and a low-cost solution. Now, that's all well and good. The article that actually caught my attention today was titled, Retirement Income Shouldn't Be a Guessing Game. So retirement income shouldn't be a guessing game. Now, I'll give you the basics. Okay, so this article essentially says that the 4% rule, which we've talked about many times here on this show, the article here written by Catherine New, the content management manager at Betterment.com, says the 4% rule, really doesn't work. I mean, it's generally not a good idea, et cetera, et cetera. So we've heard that before. So they have a different approach. And so here's the general idea. So if we start with a $500,000 retirement account balance, so that's $500,000 of retirement income assets. And for those of you, again, who are new to the show and the terminology, assets that have been saved for retirement, they're generally not saved to go buy a car with. They were saved to draw income from. So I refer to them as retirement income assets. So this is the money that we've got saved for income. So here in the article, it says $500,000 in retirement account balance. And the advice is start with a 4.65% withdrawal. Okay, so that's $1,941 a month in the first year of retirement in this particular example. And again, you can download this from the show notes. I don't want you to take my word for it. Remember, I want you to check it out yourself, see what you think. But 4.65% is a $1,941 per month retirement income draw in the first year. So the article goes on to say, well, if the market goes up, okay, so now we've had a market increase. So in the second year, we can draw 4.85%. Okay, so now we can draw $2,062. Okay, so now we've increased our income a little bit because our account value went up. So we increased our income as the account went up. And you might guess what happens if the market goes down. So the market now drops, and we drop the income to 4.3% at $1,791 per month. Now, hold on a second. What just happened there? We had a $150 decrease in our income from the previous year, okay, which is actually 7.3%. So we actually lowered our income in this example and our standard of living by 7.3%. Well, I'm not sure about you. If you listen to this show, you know that I'm all about lifestyle preservation, that Personal Pension Radio is about putting together a plan that allows you to maintain your pre-retirement lifestyle as close as possible without sacrificing lifestyle somewhere along the way in retirement. So here, right away in this example, they're saying, well, if the market drops, just be prepared to take a 7% cut in your lifestyle. Well, let me ask you a question. If you take a 7% cut in your lifestyle in that given year, does the economy also give you a break on inflation? Does the economy all of a sudden go to a zero inflation rate in that year that you took a 7% cut in pay? No, of course not. So you took a 7% decrease in your standard of living, and then let's say inflation is 3%. Well, that's 10% shaved off your standard of living when you bring in this particular plan. So the article finishes up by saying, assuming, here's where we love that. We love the assumption. And if you listen to the last podcast episode, you'll be reminded of the probability camp, people who are investment only and all about probabilities. So assuming a 6% market return, the expected average, there's another buzzword, average draw from this account over the retirement years would be $2,500. Well, guess what? By the way, that is 5% of the original $500,000 balance. Okay, so assuming a 6% market return, well, we know that's not something that we can put as a known factor for retirement income. And then we also know, if you've listened to the show, you can't use averages. So the expected average draw rate is $2,500. And then we finish with this last thing here that I love, this line in there that says, this guarantees that her capital will last 20 years. I'll tell you what, I cannot use the word guarantee in a scenario like this. Now, a financial entertainer, they can actually say, that guarantees this. Well, I'll tell you what, as an investment professional, there's no way that I would say that, first of all. Plus, that is something that you just can't promise. But I really zeroed in on this word here that it said guarantees that her capital will last 20 years. Well, it doesn't say that her capital will be preserved. It doesn't say that her $500,000 will still be there in 20 years. It says that the capital will last 20 years. Okay? Just means that she has not run out of money. And this particular example has this woman dying at 85 years old. What if she lives to be 90? What if we don't get a 6% market return? What if the average draw is different, right? What if? So really want you to watch your step with this, because at first glance, when you read a headline in an article now that says retirement income should not be a guessing game. Well, if it's not a guessing game, I would think when I first saw the title of this article, well, perhaps we're going to talk about something that's more of a guarantee, some more certainty. And yet, assuming a 6% and expecting an average and guarantees that her capital will last, well, there's no guarantees in this scenario. As a matter of fact, it's full of things that are not guaranteed. I guess one thing is guaranteed, that the plan says be prepared for as much as a 7% decrease in your standard of living up and down throughout your retirement years. Yeah, that doesn't work for me. I mean, if you're going to put together a retirement income strategy, we've got to have a strategy that gives us the best potential for a level, consistent income that is hopefully as close to possible where we left the workforce. That we're not just sacrificing 20 or 30% of our retirement or our income in retirement. We've got to have a plan that gives us something better, that takes away this uncertainty. So watch your step with that. I'll have a link to that particular article. I'll have all the stuff in the show notes. So please, again, don't take my word for it. Please go read the whole thing. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments back on the Personal Pension Radio site. Let me know what you think. Give me your feedback. I always appreciate it. Now, I do need to vent. This is going to be a bit of a therapy session. I'm going to do my best to keep my blood pressure down. My blood pressure is very good, according to the people at the Red Cross, where I donate my blood every X number of months. Okay, so I'm going to throw in one more time a disclosure here to say these are my opinions in many cases here. This is just my opinion. This is some of my frustrations. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a CPA. Okay, so I when I speak of attorneys and CPAs, know that I love attorneys and CPAs. Some of my favorite clients that I work with personally are attorneys and CPAs, okay? And also, as a disclosure, I'm going to offer up some things that are just on my mind. These are not things that are chiseled in stone somewhere, but let me just tell you what's on my mind, okay? Because there's a few things that actually came in, a couple of things actually came in just recently here in my practice that I need to share so that you're aware of it and kind of just take it for what it's worth. So I've actually worked with a professional. This person is, funny enough, a certified public accountant, and they have a very specifically designed type of life insurance in their planning, as far as in their product mix. Remember, we said earlier that no one product is a solution to retirement income planning. So they have a particular type of life insurance that has been very carefully designed to be part of a much bigger strategy. Okay? And the client, this CPA client of mine, is actually in the process of considering how to add money to that life insurance product. And as they're getting ready to do that, they happen to be chatting with a friend of theirs who's an attorney. Okay, so here's how the conversation went generally. My client, the CPA, talked to his friend, an attorney, and said, "Hey, what do you think about this life insurance thing?" That's generally the way the question went. Not a lot of detail, not very specific, because the client, a CPA, understands that I've been there to design and help, but didn't necessarily explain the details of this particular life insurance product. So here's the response. Here's the response from the attorney. The attorney said, maybe, referring to the life insurance like maybe that's a good thing. He said, you need to see the policy illustrations and the guaranteed interest rates in the policies and other provisions such as adjustments for life insurance to guarantee principal. Oh, okay. And this is what the attorney goes on to say. And listen to this. What I'm hearing from investment advisors and actuaries is that the guaranteed rates are not achievable from the investments, and that creates uncertainty as to the ability of the carriers to pay. Huh. Wow, there's a mouthful there. First things first. This CPA is taking advice from an attorney who is taking advice from investment advisors that, when you wrap it all back around, have absolutely no idea what type of life insurance product my client has. And yet they are offering up very generalized advice and a warning that says, oh, hey, yeah, you should watch out for this. I've talked to people who say that you should be careful of this or that. All right. So am I a little bit bugged by that? Absolutely. Okay. So let's just jump into a little piece here, right? So here's one piece, right? So the attorney that my CPA client has talked to said that the guaranteed rates are not achievable from the investments. Well, right there's a problem. This attorney is speaking of a completely different type of life insurance. Totally different. Because the particular life insurance product that this client has no investment component. It just simply doesn't have it. Okay. All right. Now, next. Investment advisors. Oh, referencing investment advisors. Well, hold on just a second there. Investment advisors, they love to point out that the guarantees in certain life insurance products are very low. And they say, look and see how bad that is. We can do better with our investments over here. And they point to the guarantees in an insurance product. Okay, so whatever your feelings are on insurance products, hold on. You have to understand something that depending on the insurance product, and I'll just suggest that we're going to use I'll discuss generally the type of product my client has. Okay, so there is a guaranteed component, and then there is a projected component. And the investment community likes to say, oh, see, you can't use those projections because they're not guaranteed. Well, No, they're not guaranteed. But let me explain something. The projections are based on the companies, these life insurance companies, paying a profitable dividend. So I'm not going to go into a lot of wonky details, but this particular type of life insurance product is one that receives dividends based on the profits of the particular insurance company. And no, the dividends are not guaranteed because, like with any dividend, even from a Wall Street stock company, they don't know exactly what the profit will be every year. So the dividend happens. At the end of the year, they pay a dividend. Here's the thing. Remember, investment folks like to point out, oh, those dividends, they're not guaranteed, so you can't use those. Well, wait just a second. Using one particular example that this client of mine actually has, the company that we use for that particular life insurance product has paid a profitable dividend for over 136 years in a row. Never missed a dividend. Now, is that guaranteed? No. Could that stop next year? Sure. But could you give me something more consistent than 136 years in a row from the investment only camp? Probably not. Okay. But again, it's not about one or the other. Okay. Because the life insurance product that this client has is part of a bigger strategy. It is not the only piece of his retirement income strategy. Okay, so let's come back to that. We've got a CPA asking an attorney for advice, okay, about the life insurance that they have. There is something wrong there, don't you think? Right? If you look at it, think about this. You would never take advice on cancer from your accountant. You would never go to your accountant and say, gosh, what do you think about this cancer diagnosis? Tell me what you think. Let me give you the x-rays and the MRI and see what you think. Well, of course not, right? And you wouldn't take tax advice from your mechanic, right? Just like you shouldn't take tax advice from an attorney. You really should be speaking with someone who specializes in that. So why would you consider taking what could be the most important financial advice you have ever received, which is related to your retirement income planning? Why would you take that advice or even consider it from someone who is not specialized in retirement income planning? That's my question, right? And yet people do it all the time. We're taking advice from people who really have no business making a comment like that without knowing the details, right? So when we look at this, okay, I hear question come in. So my response back was something to the effect of, hey, rather than me try and teach your attorney friend or his investment advisors the correct answers, right, via email, why don't you schedule a lunch and I'll be happy to set them straight and help them understand that what they're missing, right? So that was my offer back. And I offer that to anybody. If you have a bias that is driven by some opinion from a financial entertainer or talking head, another professional who's throwing out advice in an area that they really don't specialize in, and you're wondering, gosh, is that right? Give me a call. Send me a note, personalpensionradio.com. Send me a question. That's one of the things I'm going to ask you to do is if you've got something that's just sort of bugging you, some financial question or something financially related that's keeping you up at night, really whatever it is, what questions do you have that hasn't been answered or that you feel like, gosh, maybe Kraig has a point. Maybe I should kind of double check that from someone who is biased in favor of giving out the best possible advice. That's where my bias lies. It's not biased towards life insurance or biased towards investments or biased towards real estate. My bias lies in whatever advice will help my client achieve their best possible outcome. That's my bias. Okay. You can listen, by the way, to episode 46 if you want to hear more about that. But that was the first one that I'm venting on today, is that as you take advice, right, really just make sure you keep that in mind. Okay. Now, this one really got me. This one actually just happened just last night. I don't take too many late night or late afternoon appointments because I have family, and now we have a new house that kind of exploded into an old house exploded into the new house, and just trying to manage daylight. But this particular gentleman had actually attended a workshop that I taught recently, and he is 2 years from retirement. And he had questions about how to maximize his retirement income. Now, a little background about this gentleman. To be fair, there's no other nice way to say it. He did not manage his finances well, and then on top of that, had a nasty divorce. Now, very fortunate, I suppose you could say, some would say fortunate, he got to keep the house. Well, he was left with a bit of a mortgage and limited retirement income assets. Pretty limited retirement income assets. So he had very little that he was going to be able to draw income from. He was blessed that he had a small state pension. So he'd worked for the state of California for enough time that he does have a bit of a pension. Now, here's the really rough part, that because of the way he worked throughout much of his life, he did not build up a lot of Social Security income. His retirement income from Social Security is probably only going to be about $1,000 a month. So 66 to 68 years old, in the next 2 years, he really only has about $1,600 a month to look forward to. So think about that. Soak that in for a minute. 68 years old. This gentleman worked a lot in his life, worked hard, unfortunately did a lot of hard work for cash, and did not report into the Social Security system. So he has very little Social Security credit built up, and he's running out of time physically, emotionally. It's time to get ready to retire. So he'll leave his state job with some income, and he'll have a Social Security pension. So he's got about $1,600 a month to look forward to in 2 years, and very limited retirement income assets. And yet, here's the big one. I sat across the table from him yesterday afternoon, and we talked, and I asked him if he had any significant assets aside from, what we'd already talked about. And he says, well, I guess my house is pretty valuable. And I said, wow, okay, where's your house? And he described where his house was, and I knew exactly where his house was. And I said, well, your house must be worth about $700,000. And he said, that's about right. That's what people say it's worth. And I asked, is that your forever home? And he says, well, what do you mean? I said, is it your forever home? Is it a house that you can die in? And he said, well, it's 2 stories, and it has a big lot, over an acre of land, and it's got actually like 10 steps to get into the front door. So the answer to the question really was, nah, not really. It's not his forever home. Now, just recap for a second. This guy is going to retire with $1,600 a month and a 3,000 square foot house on an acre of land in California. Okay, how do you think he's going to do with his lifestyle in retirement? That's a pretty hard one, don't you think, right? Pretty hard one. Well, from a financial advisory perspective, as a financial professional, I'll tell you right now, there's not a lot that I would be able to offer to help this man. There's not much I can do except this. I asked him this question. I said, just flat out, I said, have you talked to anybody about a reverse mortgage? Now, let me give you a quick disclosure alert, okay? Because those of you out there heard reverse mortgage and you might have tried to turn off your podcast, or you crash your car, or you fell off your bike. You have a bias against reverse mortgage, perhaps, because you've heard someone out there say that, oh, that's a terrible thing to do. Well, unfortunately, this guy had heard something very similar. Before I could hardly get the word or the question out, had you considered a reverse mortgage, he said with an exclamation point, no way. And I said, well, why? Why haven't you given it any thought at all? My accountant said that the bank can take your house. And another friend of mine said that the reverse mortgage is just a ripoff. Wait a second. Did you hear that? My accountant said the bank can take my house, is what this guy said. His accountant actually told him that a reverse mortgage was a terrible idea. Well, I'm sorry. I stopped and said, wait a minute. Your accountant has no idea what the heck he's talking about. No idea. The disclosure I want to throw at you right now is, I don't sell reverse mortgages. I don't make any money on reverse mortgages. But I'll tell you right now, my mom has one and she hasn't killed me yet. She loves her reverse mortgage. So I am a big fan of reverse mortgage when it is applied and done correctly, when it is put into a plan and it's not just done for the heck of it because somebody sold it to you. Okay? So just know that I don't have any financial incentive in a reverse mortgage discussion with this person, okay? But I stayed there at the table for nearly another hour discussing it with him, because if he used a reverse mortgage program in some variation, there's different ways that he can do it. I'm not going to go into all that. He could double his retirement income. He could increase the money that he has to spend for emergencies and opportunities and long-term care. He could move into a smaller house. There's so many things that he can do to change dramatically change his retirement income perspective. I mean, just the income options alone from a reverse mortgage would perhaps double his retirement income. Double it. And yet, here's his accountant and some friend who has no idea what they're talking about telling him, no, you shouldn't do that. Basically, giving him advice to live poor for the rest of his life so that he can give his kids to his house. Or give his, how did that sound for a slip? To give his house to his kids. And when I asked him, who gets your house? Oh, my kids have plenty of money. The kids don't need his house. They don't especially need his house free and clear after dad got to live through his retirement broke. Okay? So can you tell I'm a little passionate about this? Because it just about knocked me out of my chair last night that he said no to even learning about a reverse mortgage initially because his accountant and a friend said, oh, those are terrible. They have no idea what this guy's situation's really like. They have no idea what the reverse mortgage is really like. And yet, here they are just throwing out advice. And this poor guy was going to listen to that advice, and he's going to enter retirement basically below the poverty line and just be broke for the rest of his life. And he's sitting on a $700,000 house. How does that make sense? Okay? It doesn't. So, as I mentioned earlier, find an advisor with the right bias. We all have biases. Listen to episode 46. You can hear me talk about that. And it's a really good example that had been given to me years ago. I have tons of biases. You have biases. Attorneys and everybody has biases. But you need to find the right bias. You need to find the right advisor who will sit there at the table and talk to you about something that they have no financial incentive in just because they have a bias in favor of helping you come out ahead. That's what you need to look for. Okay, so enough with my ranting today. This is more of a therapeutic episode. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to this episode. If you have questions specifically, this is what I want to do as a call to action. I want to know what keeps you up at night. I want to know financially. I don't want to know those things. I want to know financially what keeps you up at night. What questions are you having as you read things like this article that I mentioned earlier? As you're reading these things, what questions are coming to your mind saying, gosh, is that right? You know, my mom was talking about this, or my dad or my friend or my cousin said this, or you should invest in that. Whatever it might be, I'd like you to go to Personal Pension Radio, click on that contact section, send me a note with your questions, and let me know what's on your mind. I will definitely answer them in episodes ahead. Really appreciate y'all being here. Get to Personal Pension Radio, subscribe. I'd also love to have a challenge to increase the number of positive reviews we've got on iTunes. Get on over there. We got to break that 10, 12 review barrier. Reviews are a challenge. I know it takes time to click on the button and go over there, but come on. Get on over to iTunes and leave a review. Thanks again for listening. We'll talk to you again real soon.
Thank you for listening to the Personal Pension Radio Podcast. If you missed anything during the show, that's okay. We took the notes for you. Check the show notes for links, offers, and a full transcript. And don't forget to head over to personalpensionradio.com and download your free retirement income report. While you're there, we'd appreciate some iTunes love. Please leave us a fantastic rating on iTunes by going to personalpensionradio.com/iTunes. Thanks again for listening.